we always know that being able to nurture who we have and being able to give them the skills internally allows them to become better leaders, but obviously better operators, and the process becomes faster as well as far as our growth and where we want to go as well.
Hospitality operators are always looking at ways of improving their businesses, of making their employees stick around and giving them a satisfying and interesting work life along the way. Today we are going to dig into that and look at the way one business is engaging its staff and trying to continue on that journey to making a viable, fun and satisfying business. Our guest today is Adam Brownell. He's previously worked with Grilled and he's the new CEO at Hectors Deli, a powerhouse of sandwich goodness in Melbourne. Adam, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thanks so much for having me, Dani. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so good to have you on the show. I'm really looking forward to this chat. I know it is going to be juicy, and I also know I'm going to want about 5 toasties at the end of it because I love what Hectors does. Give us a little rundown on your role and what's brought you to this point in your career.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on Dirty Linen. So CEO of Hectors Deli, we have 3 sites at the moment and we are looking for some really exciting plans of the future with growth. My role as CEO is obviously to oversee the entire operation from a financial, a marketing perspective. I've got a very big background in operations, as you suggested, with 8 years experience at Grilled on a state and a national level. Has allowed me to fine-tune my skills and then obviously subsequently be able to put in the hard work that's required to formulate a structure and a plan for the longevity and the sustainability of Hectors Delis for not only this year, but many years to come, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, we speak to so many different people that work in hospitality on this podcast. They come from all kinds of different directions. I mean, I really can already hear that that operational tone in your voice. Like, this sounds like a guy who gets things done. Tell us a bit about it day to day. Like, what does it mean to be the CEO of a business like Hectors?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, operation is, to many that sit on the outside of hospitality, operation seems like a mythical beast. But when you break it down to the simplicity of what we do as hospitality operators, well and truly outside of Hectors Deli, it's getting to the day-to-day effectiveness in place. So that means structure, that means communication, that means feedback through our leaders. It allows growth and opportunity and the pipeline of where we want to go from a recruitment perspective. So structure is probably the biggest one we've had to navigate through over the last 3 months, and 3 months being my tenure here at the brand. And it's been a busy 3 months. So on a day-to-day level, it's all around people. That is the first and foremost thing we have to get right. I know a lot of people say it, I know a lot of people talk about it, but there's many businesses that walk the walk. And hopefully we are leading by example in that space. And I've certainly done it from my leadership perspective over the last few years, but that's now proving a little bit more fruitful over the last few months with the tenure that we've had, but also the internal pipeline as well. So outside of that, what any CEO has got to do, we've got to be driving business through the front door. We've got to be ensuring that our brand is aligned and our guests that are coming through the front door have met our expectations. So, there's navigating people, the element of that, but obviously making sure we run a profitable business. And as I said before, making sure it's sustainable for the long term as well. And so
let's get into the actual nitty gritty, Adam. So what do you actually mean in terms of the workforce? Like, what are you doing? What are you hoping to achieve? And how far along that journey are you?
So we have a total of 44 employees currently on the books at Hectors Deli, 8 of which is made up of our support office that has a varied range of part-timers, including myself, and the other 36 is all in the operations as far as the deli is concerned. So as far as our workforce and getting into the nitty-gritty, when we get right down into the detail, we're talking about one-on-ones with our teams, and we're talking about the workflow and throughput of our each station kitchen. So from our sandwich press to our fryers to all the way through to the finer detail of cleaning, make sure that every single thing is opened and closed to the exact spec and consistency across every single deli. So we know that every guest that walks in our front door has the same experience at Richmond, our first site back in 2017, to our newest site at Fitzroy, which was the end of last year. So every single minute detail is carefully calculated. It's been wonderful to work through some really talented individuals, including Dom, the founder. And it's been good to get aligned really quickly on what he sees as the vision as a brand, as a founder, and obviously in conjunction with myself, hopefully steering the ship in the right direction for the longevity of it, and being able to make sure every single one of those little details, from the product quality to the involvement of the people and their training, to ensure that, 4 years now, we're not only just talking about sandwiches as a brand, we're talking about as a bit of a movement and really reshaping how hospitality is operated. And so there's been some fascinating discussions about where we want to go and what we want to do, and I can allude that maybe to another time around where we'd like to go as far as other areas of the business. But first and foremost, let's get our people right and get every little detail that we possibly can to ensure our guests and our people are looked after at the same time.
So I guess, having all those specs ship shape and, creating that customer experience sounds good for the business and sounds great for customers. Why is it good for employees? Like, what are they getting out of it? How do you get the buy-in from them?
Yeah, great question. So when I first arrived, we were talking a lot around how we reduce the amount of turnover in hospitality in general. So many businesses I've worked in Australia, from hotels to resorts to airline industry, which has probably got the biggest amount of rotation through the turnover. And therefore, as a hospitality sector, we're always acutely aware about how we can reduce that turnover. It's normally an industry that we stumble upon in our last years of school, or, it's a part-time job in university. So being able to reduce that turnover and increase their staff retention, we've started to work in initiatives, so structure being one of them, but creating a pipeline of development. So when someone comes from, a particular venue that's in Melbourne, and they see Hectors Deli as a brand that's moving forward, what can we offer them more than just a paycheck? How can we ensure that turnover is reduced and their engagement is high? So we've involved weekly drinks for the team. We've done quarterly events for the team. We've now introduced a bonus structure for our leadership team as well, including a retention bonus on an annualized basis. But there's also initiatives that we're working on now with our suppliers to give them certifications as far as every front of house employee and back of house, if you're in a leadership position, is a certified barista as well through our suppliers. So giving them, I guess, more than what they've bargained for when they signed up, and they see Hectors Deli as a great brand, being able to offer them more, and then they can walk away. Hopefully, our desire is that they don't walk away from Hectors Deli ever, but if they do, we want to make sure they walk away going, great, I've got more runs on the board as far as my resume is concerned, or I'm now on a better trajectory, so I can either go and open my own business, or, I'd like to really see what the future holds as far as developing into a supervisor or assistant restaurant manager and so forth.
And how have you found the response? Have people been buying into the vision?
Absolutely excellent. Yeah, over the first 4 weeks, we worked really hard on outlining our purpose and our internal values. Our purpose is to pioneer the hospitality landscape. It's obviously fresh sandwiches made by chefs and delivered with warmth. So we want to make sure that purpose is stuck true to our core, and our internal values is talked to on a daily basis, but also on a weekly in our operations meeting. So a part of that structure and that alignment was our Tuesday morning calls, and our Tuesday morning calls aligns all the restaurant managers, and the first port of call is talking about votes, similar to a Brownell medal, if you like. And for those that are listening from a Victorian background, what allowed us as operators, but also the restaurant managers, to vote on a 1, 2, 3 basis to go towards Employee of the Month. So we do that on a basis, and we base that off a weekly basis, and we base that off our values as well. So they talk to the values, so it's come front of mind. And just recently, we've been really fortunate to have our first internal, since I've been here, our first internal team member supervisor to assistant restaurant manager. And I asked him point blank when we started the conversation about his internal development into assistant restaurant manager, why he wanted to do it. And he's like, I genuinely believe in the brand. I believe in the vision about what we're doing and where we're going. And hopefully that will continue to come, and we can not only start to attract external talent, but really promote the internal from within as well, because we always know that being able to nurture who we have, and being able to give them the skills internally allows them to become better leaders, but obviously better operators, and the process becomes faster as well, as far as our growth and where we want to go as well.
And I mean, you've mentioned, Adam, you want people to stick around, obviously, but that if they do head out into the wider world of hospitality, they leave with, credentials, skills, I suppose, values. What do you hope to bring to the broader industry with the kind of structure and operations that you're, leaning into at Hectors?
Well, there's not only obviously the skill set that we apply from a knife skills and a chefing background. We've got baristas, so we have front of house and back of house broken up into, and then we want to be able to employ, which we haven't admittedly got too far into the detail now, around what that next 2-year stretch from a training perspective looks like in a structure. So when we talk about commercial cookery, and we talk about barista course and master classes, and where they actually work with our suppliers, as I mentioned before, we want them to be able to walk away with those particular skill sets. But we also want them to walk away as better leaders. And now, this is a very subjective topic, of course, but we want to make sure that they walk away with the ability to have difficult conversations. When a team member turns up, 5 minutes after their start time, how are they having that conversation? When the uniform is not porcelain white and we want to make sure they're reflecting the brand, how are we actually making sure that the right time, right place, right tone of that conversation is happening? So these are the starts of skills that we'll start to give these team members of ours, that will allow them to set up as better leaders. So hopefully they are able to coach either our team or someone else for the future, so they feel compelled that they can actually be not only better leaders but better operators if they were, to own their own business one day. So that's our desire. If they do walk away, as said, we never want them to walk away, but we want them to always walk away if they've outgrown us, or they're off their own journey, to be able to have the behaviours that are as associated with what a great leader is, not necessarily just the skill sets. There's a lot of businesses that can provide great skill sets and great tools, and there's myriad of those across Australia and international. So if we can lead them as being a high-performing team member, then that allows us to, become reflected as an employer of choice, which is what our big desire is in the industry, well and truly from now into the future.
And I'd say the biggest conversation in hospitality at the moment is costs and pricing, and just, employers are being squeezed, in every which way. Customers are really watching what they're spending. Are you able to quantify the financial benefit of this kind of focus on staff and the way that you manage the workforce?
Not yet. We will be able to in the future. Turnover is an area of any single business that is a significant cost when you pour resources into external recruiting agencies. You might be, if you go to get an external agency to put on $10,000 to $12,000 worth of fees to just secure one particular individual, then if we don't have to have that cost as a business, and we can either have our internal channels, so we have a careers website, or if we use platforms like Seek and Indeed and the like, it allows us to internally promote. That's just one cost. And then if we don't have to put on extra resources from a training perspective and a HR team, because we're not having to constantly train new team members and the skills and that are associated with it. So it's very difficult to quantify it. I know there's lots of numbers floating around many different industries, and having handled with myself, it's thousands and thousands of dollars just to secure one person, from the time you go, I need to hire, to the time that they pass their probationary period, which could be anywhere, depending on what business you're in, 3 to 6 months. But if you use 3 months as your best tool, and then that allows us to go, cool, if they're done in 3 months and they are now what we consider skilled in our business, what is that cost associated to the business and the training that is associated, i.e. how many hours above the roster that they need to be buddied up as well. So right now, difficult to quantify in my tenure with the business, but there's certainly costs that we need to be able to absorb, but we want to be able to reinvest. And we are genuinely serious about making sure that we put people first. We talk a two-prong approach, and you've got business and you've got commercial and you've got people. And more often than not, we say yes, and many businesses talk about putting people first. and making sure that we keep that first. So when we talk about the financial outcomes, we know we'll reap the rewards. We are really comfortable with strategy, making sure that we put our people first and we protect them, and we continue to do these initiatives. We're talking about well-being. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about parental leave and birthday leave, all these great initiatives that will be allowed us to go moving forward. It will take some time, but we want to be able to stage it. So we obviously just don't dump all these in, because we don't necessarily know, to my point before, how to quantify this just yet. So hopefully in the very near future, we'll be able to put these numbers to it, and then therefore we'll be able to look back on this and go, what did work, and what is the next best strategy to ensure that, again, we reduce our turnover as far as people is concerned.
Adam, what sort of lessons can you bring from a business like Grilled to Hectors? I mean, I have to confess, when I saw that, the CEO at Hectors had the background in Grilled, I thought, oh my goodness, like, it's a chain. What's going on? I mean, what do you want to bring with you, and what do you want to leave behind?
Yeah, great question. Grilled's a wonderful brand. I wouldn't be in my position today without the success story that I've had. I've been given so many wonderful opportunities all around the country. When I talk about people, I feel like I'm going to keep on talking about it, but Grilled genuinely talks to and about their people a lot. Their internal values are really strong. And the structure that has been able to provide over many years, to see Simon as a single owner operator out of Hawthorn back in 2004 and be able to now launch into 160 sites and beyond has had its stumbles and falls. Not every business is going to be perfect, and I won't be perfect. Hectors Deli won't be perfect, but if we can learn from some of these things and some of these businesses, and in many respects, I'd say that what I've learned from Grilled has enabled me to get into the position and leverage some of the information and some of the tools that I've been provided over the years to be able to set us off in a trajectory. And so when we talk about a vision, when we talk about brand, when we talk about values, that's what we're going to be able to do. And I think what we will try and do a little bit differently is be able to try and stay to a real local community feel. Grill does this really well through its programs, and our desire is not to turn into a chain. I'd hate that terminology. I don't want to use that terminology. When we talk about a brand, we want to make it sure that local cafe shop that says, "Hi, Dani, welcome back, and this is your order," and you get that feeling of that this is your cafe and you're connected with that individual. That's how we want Hectors Deli to be to all our guests. And if we get that wrong, then we'll lose the war. And we want to make sure that as our trajectory goes on, that's really carefully considered from a guest perspective, but also a team point of view as well, because I'll be really serious as well. The team that we have right now are genuinely excited about that direction. And Dom and I have spoken about this at length over the last few months about where that vision is and how big and how grand Hectors Deli may be. And we want to be able to expand, but we also want to be able to do it with a really carefully considered, well thought out process that makes sure our guests don't have that exact same comment that you just said going, "Oh, another chain? We don't want to be another chain. We're not interested in that." And we want to remain really true and loyal to our fans that we have now, and therefore be able to develop to a certain point and to a certain level, hopefully Australia wide in the next few years, that without going too expansive and too severe. But who knows what world will bring out, but that's our direction that we're going to head over the next few years, and there's some exciting initiatives that we really want to include on that journey as well.
I mean, a lot of people will probably, when they hear about Grilled and they hear about people and culture, they'll recall that there was a bit of a pay scandal with Grilled a few years ago. Do you want to speak to that?
I honestly had very little to do with that particular incident, so I couldn't share a lot of information on it. So, and it was kept at a really high level from our perspective as operators. We were able to get on with our job that we needed to get on with, and as far as I'm concerned, Grilled has always been a great brand and trying to always do the right thing by our people. But whether it got it wrong or right or the timing of it, couldn't really share too much more details on it. But from our perspective, the business was always trying to do the right thing. So that's as much as information I was ever given, and that's probably all I could give you, unfortunately.
Oh, that's all right. Well, I think the settlement that was entered into was confidential anyway, so there's probably not too much information out there about it. But yeah, take your point that yeah, it wasn't something that touched you personally. Yeah, so I mean, I guess one of the big conversations in hospitality as well is around mental health and about businesses supporting staff who, whether they're going through things in their personal lives or whether there are things that happen to them at work that are challenging to deal with. What sort of initiatives do you think that you'll bring in to the Hectors landscape along those lines?
Yeah, so we last week we launched our what we think is hopefully one of the most pioneering parts of what we've done over the last few years is a 4-day working week for our leaders. So supervisors, assistant restaurant managers, and restaurant managers can opt into a condensed 38-hour week over 4 days. So we launched that last week, and that pretty much takes up 40% of our workforce. So when you kind of break down the numbers, that's all our leaders. Outside of the 40%, if you look at the 60% of the team members, the rest are either part-time or casual. So they're already eligible for a 4-day working week. We spoke about this a few months ago about, looking at retail and looking at corporate brands and the success they've had, particularly overseas. And there's a few, that I'm sure are doing it in ad hoc basis. Bunnings are one of them from a corporate perspective that launched it a couple of months ago now as well. So there's some big businesses that are taking this space really seriously. So as a hospitality sector, I know of parts of businesses that are doing this, but it was one initiative that we really wanted to get deadly serious about and go, well, why can't we do it in hospitality? Why is hospitality seen as an industry that it's a little bit challenging to get this across the line? It's longer hours, or it's hard work, or it's got this perception that the pay not necessarily be as competitive as other spaces. So why can't we start to change that mold? So that was kind of the first initiative that we've successfully launched last week, which has had some wonderful feedback thus far. And there's lots of other initiatives that we're talking about in the near future around wellbeing and lifestyle and balance as well.
Yeah, that is really amazing. So someone could apply for a job at Hectors, and if they're in that full-time position, they know they could do their days over their week could be a 4-day week.
Yep, correct. So day one, there's no hidden catches. There is a 38-hour working week, and you can choose to do it over a 4-day week. So that allowed our supervisors and our leadership team to create a little bit more flexibility. It was coming from a lifestyle perspective. So we just sat down this morning actually to review week one's results, if you want to call them, but review how the impact was had on the team. Resounding success, and it's only week one, of course, but we actually had a busy week, a second week of school holidays in Victoria, so it was a busy week as far as trade was concerned, but we were able to balance that out, and we were hearing things like spent my recharge day off looking after my nephews and relieving my brother-in-law, spent my day with my partner. We went to one of our favourite picnic spots. So it was these recharge days that we've put in is to break up the mold. We want to try and encourage not doing a 4-day full 10-hour days or 9.5-hour days with breaks as a straight, because we want to not have that 4th day be sort of tedious and long. And so we've introduced the initiative where we want to allow a recharge day, which is used for them and them personally. So they'll do 2 days on, 1 day off, and then get back on 2 days ideally. And that allows them to do exactly those things. So that could be anywhere from going to the gym or going to church or cooking a great meal for their partner, whatever it may be that is really important to them. When we talk about well-being, that's really important. So resounding success there. The other part that we've done at the same time is ensuring that we've got a weekend day off as well. And I'll be really honest, I thought the 4-day working week and the recharge day would have been the Hail Mary and the glory and everything, but actually everyone's been not only excited about that, but really amplifying the space, going, hey, I can actually have a Saturday off as a restaurant manager or a Sunday off as a restaurant manager, because for so long, hospitality, there's almost this common misconception that you have to be on every single weekend day as well. So that's not necessarily set in stone. So the managers might turn around and say, hey, I'd prefer to work for that perspective, or get to know it, or do it for a period of time. But we really want to encourage that to ensure that we've got a supervisor and a restaurant manager, because we've built the structure and the depth in our team that allows us to have still either 2 or 3 leaders on a business on any given week and day anyway. So that's been a big hit with the team, which is great.
So cool. So, Adam, I guess a lot of people listening to this will have businesses that are smaller than Hectors with fewer employees and perhaps not the corporate structure to support, I guess, even the thinking time around these things. What advice might you have for people who just really feel in the thick of their businesses, whether it's, as an employee or as an owner? What could they take from your experience to help their own business navigate these challenging times?
If it's back to people, I would recommend one simple initiative is to start with having one-on-ones with every individual and at depth. So try and break it up into personal and professional life. When I do interviews with external candidates, I speak more about their what's impacting them on outside of life. So if I know that they love playing golf and I know that I can fit that into our mold and they can do their Sunday day off and have a golfing day, then I know we can structure around a business that allows them to be a better person back at home, a better partner, a better parent, a better friend, whatever it may be, that allows them to be the best self that they can be in. So one, it sounds really simple, but it is the most effective, is take notes and sit down with individuals on a one-on-one basis regularly and understand what is really making them tick. And that could be something really positive or really something that needs to be changed from a rostering perspective, or, we need to change the setup that our operation actually is in our kitchen. So listening and understanding about it. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that means we have to listen and do something about it. So if we're not listening, if we're actually going to all that effort and really taking notes on every single individual that's in our business and being able to effectively apply it. And that's the catch, because a lot of people do listen and sit down and take notes, but bringing it to life. Now, unless it's something completely, out of left field and say, hey, I would like to work a 1-day working week on full pay. And we say, look, okay, that's probably not the easiest way that can we run my small business. But if the reality is like, hey, every second week, I might actually want every weekend off. Is that plausible? Look, let me see what I can do and I can come back to you, and then you revert back to that individual. So as simple as it might sound, that is the easiest tip I can give any small business operator to start with, and actually applying it and bringing it to life. If we look after our team, we will reap the benefits on the reward. That means that, if you need a shift covered, or if they needed to stay back, for an hour, if they're a casual or whatever it may be, that allows us that flexibility to get through trade, or, whatever it may be that they do from a personal perspective, it will reap the rewards and do full circle to ensure that you don't spend your time in this vicious vortex about being only stuck in the grind and just thinking, okay, where's the next bottom dollar? A lot of business owners put back to that point of that two-prong approach, people and commercial. They talk about a lot of commercial elements first. Okay, how am I driving sales through the door? How am I marketing my brand? Do I open up a delivery platform? Do I do a night trade? So on and so forth. But it's really imperative that we come from a people perspective, get our structure right. That's what we've done over the last 3 months at Hectors Deli. And then we can start applying brand. And then if we start talking about that, then guess what? We have hopefully our guests returning, day after day and talking about how great our brand is, and our team are happy. And then it's a great circle of life. And then we continue on the next journey and go on and achieve the next initiatives that we want to as well.
Yeah, I love it. Adam, you've worked in a bunch of different industries, airlines, hotels. What lessons can you bring to some of those other arenas into hospitality?
Yeah, so I would say that the biggest lesson I could is share with anyone listening is about making sure that we have not attaching a number to an individual. I worked in the airline industry for 18 months over in the Middle East, and it was a wonderful experience. I'd never take it back off myself because I learned so much about who I was, but making sure that we attach a name and not a number to an individual. And I don't necessarily mean that literally, but there's countless examples of interviews and processes that I went through in the process because it is so regimented and so structured. I would say that my overarching commentary when it comes back down to people is that we've gone through a particularly challenging last 3 years, and we've learned so much about each other. We've learned so much about connection, and we've learned so much about who we are and what makes us tick and what gets us excited. So falling back into the trap of how we used to operate 3 years ago is where I would not want to see the hospitality industry. So if I answer your question directly, what I've learned over the last 3 or 4 years of doing what we do on a day-to-day basis is not sustainable. So 2.5 years ago, it made us understand who we are and what we trusted and what was really important to us. So let's apply those things in our business. And if we talk about a 4-day working week in a deli we're only a brand that's got 3 delis. Let's not forget, we're talking, dozens and dozens of sites, and we can financially absorb some of the costs in that way. We're just talking about simply that if an employee loves playing or going to the footy on a Saturday night, how do we actually put that into our business? So being able to use some of those industry information and being able to apply it into what we're doing on a daily basis is really imperative to make sure that, as said, we can live sustainably as people, and not only from a waste and environmental perspective, but one of our key questions in our values is about talking about, are you working sustainably? How are you working? What are you doing for yourself to ensure? And we talk about Recharge Day, and then some of these other initiatives, if I look back on the last 3 years, as particularly the hotel game. The hotel game is very challenging. There is long hours that are expected of the individual, and it's almost frowned upon when you don't do the long hours. If you go and clock an 8.5-hour day, it's like you're cutting corners in some of the hotels that I've worked with around the world. So being able to apply some of that, we are really acutely aware as employees now to understand what is the balance and getting that right. So when we talk about a 4-day week, and I mentioned a couple of the other initiatives, we're talking around parental leave as well. There's one particular hotel brand that 2,500 hotels internationally without any parental leave that's associated with business. And then you look at PricewaterhouseCoopers, KPMG, some great initiatives. Spotify, I've got it, 6-month paid parental leave. So there is some of these initiatives that we need to understand what's important with life and give some perspective and learn some of these things of what other business have not done well, and go and fix them and do something about them. And we might not be able to do that extreme initially from a financial perspective, but we're hopefully going to start to break the mold open. And if we can get some momentum, and I'd love to be sitting here doing another podcast in 12 months' time and turning around and going, here's our numbers, here's our data. There's probably people listening going, I don't think if that's necessarily going to work. I'd love to prove up the process, and we're going to learn so much in this journey. And therefore, some of these things we need to apply. I'd be able to give you quantifiable data about, turnover and staff retention and engagement. And when we do surveys about, what are they enjoying, what would they like to see change, and then simple things like how many people opted in or out to do the 4-day or 5-day week. That'll be just a simple quantifiable data that we'll be able to use for the long term as well, and hopefully pave the way for others to either trial it and do it for the next 3 or 4 months and see how it goes, and just say, we're able to opt out if we would like to, as a business sense, if you're just a single owner operator perspective. So hopefully that gives you some perspective about what is out there and changing over the last 3 years, what we've learned to be able to apply it so we can go forward and then, make hospitality industry a desirable place to be in. Not everyone necessarily, as I said, chooses to land in here deliberately first off. We kind of fall into hospitality. So becoming an employer of choice, but also being able to make the hospitality industry more sustainable as well.
Well, let's definitely chat in a year, if not before, Adam. But let's finish off this installment with a very important question. What is the sandwich you most love to smash at Hectors Deli?
Good question. There's a few. Actually, I've never been asked that question just yet.
It doesn't have to be your ride or die one, but what's one that you reckon everyone should try if they haven't already?
Yeah, I'd have to go. We have a vegan salad sandwich. We're only currently doing it out of Fitzroy at the moment. It's on a dark rye that we make in-house. It is absolutely exceptional. It packs a punch. I grew up on the land, and I love eating barbecue, every sort of second week. But the vegan sandwich that comes out of Fitzroy at the moment is absolutely exceptional. Soon to be across the other 2 sites, and we talk about structure. We're getting there. We're going to get hopefully our full menu, or very, very close to, in all our sites. Our vegan sandwich is absolutely brilliant over at Fitzroy. Go and check it out.
Awesome. I certainly will. I have not had that one. So thanks so much for the tip, and thank you for all your great tips in this conversation. Really fantastic to catch up with you, Adam. And all power to you and the team at Hectors.
Can't wait. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for having me, Dani, and all the best for everyone on the team.
Thank you. Speak soon. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This